there really a blueprint for success? And if there is one, what is that blueprint for success so that we can leg up in India's next journey? And not just that, but we can in fact transform India into this world-class global hub that we all keep talking about. So what we're going to see is a conversation that will cover various facets that are going to be very, very engaging and insightful, I hope. We'll try and understand what is the scope of expanding GCCs into R&D, product development, and even manufacturing. We'll also delve a little deeper into the world of how you can use AI, IoT, and even robotics to enhance operations, and not just operations, but manufacturing as well. Also, what we'll try and focus on is GCC's role in shaping the global economy. So that's just the broad parameters of what we'll see the conversation around. The rest, I leave it to our very stellar panel that's in fact going to be joining us on the stage. So without wasting any more time, let me start introducing our stellar panel. Let's give it up as we welcome our stellar panel. Let's begin by welcoming Saurabh Singh, India Business Head at HCLTech, to please join us on stage. And could we have a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen? Let's also welcome Aditi, Shukla, Head of Shared Services India and Country Head India at AXA XL, to join us on stage as well. Joining this stellar panel, we have Chirag, Buch, Global Service Delivery Leader at Mercer, to also join us on the panel. We also have Rajesh, SVP, Head of Asia Pacific Technology Hubs at MasterCard, also joining this lovely panel. Let's keep the applause going, ladies and gentlemen. Let's be generous in that. We also have Vivek, Gaur, Country Head and Managing Director at Colt, joining us. And our lovely moderator, we have Rohan, Lobo, who's a partner at Deloitte India, who in fact will be steering this conversation forward. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for taking our time. Rohan, the floor is all yours.
So first of all, good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedules and coming over here. Today, I welcome you to the 2024 edition of the ET Edge GCC Conclave in New Delhi. And, you know, people talk about GCCs in Bangalore, GCCs in Hyderabad. I was surprised that there are 800 GCCs in NCR, 800. They may have centers somewhere else, they may be small, they may be large, but there are 800 of them over here in GCC, in NCR. So today's theme is Disrupt, Lead, and Excel GCCs and Bharat's journey. And when we talk about this, you know, a picture comes to mind. And this picture is that of a communications equipment on a bullock cart in 1985, when one of the centers opened up its ER&D center in Bangalore, right? And today we've come a very long way from that. There are no more bullock carts. I think the traffic is crazy, but it's a huge disruptor in the Indian economy. So, and also when we think of GCCs, you know, we're looking at global products being built out of here. We're looking at global products being serviced out of here. We're looking at operations completely being transformed. And today, you know, I feel like a kid in 1992 when I think of AI, looking at how the internet would be in 1998, right? And so we are here to discuss some of the ramifications of that and some of the implications of that. And a very warm welcome to the distinguished panelists. So I'll get straight to it. Aditi, maybe I'll start with you. A little bit of an introduction of yourself, a little bit of an introduction of the organization you represent. And how do you see GCC strategies evolving and operating models evolving?
Sure. Thanks, Rohan, and good morning, everyone. So I'm Aditi Shukla. I am the country head for AXA XL in India, and I also head the Indian Shared Services. I have been with the organization now more than 20 years. I have literally grown with the organization. Picture this, the start of the century, a relatively small town, Lucknow, there weren't yet TCS and HCL in Lucknow. There weren't a lot of opportunities for young people dreaming to go to the US, right? and works in a business process management company, and their biggest attraction was they were asking, do you have a passport in the interviews? And yes, as a 20-something, that was incredibly, interesting. So yes, I did say I have a passport. I did move into the industry. And then 3 years later, I was like, no, I would want to work for a captive because, yes, Mr. Naik is right. They were called a captive then. And then I stumbled into Excel. I moved into large commercial PNC because that was what Excel was. And moving into the large commercial insurance industries, captives means something very different. It actually means the captive insurance companies, which your large Fortune 2000 companies get them, and then you are kind of reinsuring those captives. So it at a very, very early age, even before the rest of the industry kind of went away from captives, we, for our own sanity, had to use a different word. So we kind of stuck with the non-glamorous shared services at that point of time, but I really love the term global capability centers, though now I see many, many more and more attractive words coming in. I have heard value accelerators, I have heard centers of excellence. I mean, there have been just so many more coming through. I think our journey and my journey was a little bit out of the curve because, Excel started their GCC journey with the most, I would say, uncommon process. They actually started with actuarial services. I mean, normally when GCCs would start, the first thing they would probably look for is an accounts payable kind of thing. Then maybe you move on to HR shared services. You then try to set up your technology teams. We didn't do anything. We went right into it, and we were trying to get actuarial reservings. In fact, today, all the reserving for all of Excel anywhere in the world is done just in India. And we manage that. Large commercial PNC actuaries are a very rare species. And I can say that at one point, we had almost 80% of all large commercial PNC actuaries sitting with us here in Delhi. So that is how we grew. When I joined them, I started their catastrophe modeling team. Again, at that time, 20 years ago, nobody did CAT modeling in India. It was all done onshore. And I think that has been the fundamental of how we have looked at what India can do. It has always been about looking at capabilities and competence rather than just always trying to be fitting in the conformance of what a shared services can do. And we have actually started, pushing that envelope there. As far as Rohan, your question goes on how's GCC is evolving, I think I have a very favorite quote of mine, and if any one of you were in the Hyderabad edition, you'll probably remember this quote. I feel GCCs about 25 years ago were more like fingers of an large global parent, right? They were doing small tasks here and there. And then they evolved to become limbs, very important parts, but they were just the limbs, to then becoming the spine. And today they are acting as the brain. So that is where the real thought leadership is now coming from. A lot of global parents are now thinking of their GCCs as their R&D centers, as their centers of excellence. And I think that is the trajectory each one of the GCCs is trying to take, that how do they become from almost being, a disparaged back office to actually be the thought center for their global parent. There are multiple things. Of course, the talent story in India, the aspirational young demography that we have has played a large role in it. I think the innate Indian ingenuity to make things better, to think about innovation, to think about how can you do this in a better way has played role, but also our innate curiosity to start looking at processes end to end, to start linking the upstream and the downstream does help this. How do you kind of then marry it to the global need, which is to find out continuously as to how do you integrate processes to start and technology to start building it, and which is where I think the ecosystem we are developing in India, a point that Mr. Nayak too made, is actually playing a huge role in the evolution of the GCCs.
I love the analogy of saying GCCs are no longer just fingers of an organization, they're really the brain. On that note, Chirag, maybe a little bit of an introduction of yourself and your experience, and how do you see operating models, GCC strategies change?
Right, thank you, Rohan, for that. So my name is Chirag Buch. I'm the Global Service Delivery Leader for Mercer, and Mercer is part of the Marsh McLennan Group, and we've got 4 organizations, which is Marsh, which is an insurance broking company, Guy Carpenter, which is a reinsurance broking, Oliver Wyman, which is a strategic consulting, and of course Mercer, which I am a part of, is the HR consulting and transformation organization. So I lead all their shared services or their global capability centers across the world. So we've got 10 centers, and I'm responsible for that, not just the India locations. Have a bit of background about myself. I've been actually in this industry since 1997, right? So I'm almost probably a fossil from the way when we started off in terms of, we started off as World Network Services, which is now WNS, and it was set up as a British Airways shared service center out of Mumbai. So I was their first employee to look at their finance operations transition that I was recruited to really make sure it is successful. So worked with them, worked in this industry since 1997. Couple of stints outside, so I was actually responsible for, I worked 13 years with AXA, and in fact I had a short stint where I was in the setup of Bharti AXA General Insurance, till again the whole ITES GCC pulled me in. So that's been my background. I'm an accountant by education, forgotten most of it to be honest now. On that. So that's about me on that. From a Mercer perspective in terms of strategy, and as Aditi mentioned, right? So we are core to the strategy now, right? So when at least I've seen an evolution from being just a cost arbitrager to now being part of the strategic part, right? So people used to ask in hushed tones, are you doing some work in India? And now it's, of course, people actually say, at least my competitors actually say, we will now expand to the analysts, that we'll now expand our scale of operation to India. So why India to, why not India to really making sure how do we really scale it? And I've actually seen the strategy change over the period of time. And that's what Mercer we are actually looking at really expanding both scale and depth of the work we do. So that's one. Move from actually efficiency, effectiveness, which is I think by par now, to how do I really start owning the business outcome. So Mercer is most known for its career business, right? At least in India on that. And that's our smallest vertical. So we've got health, wealth and career. And typically what now I own or my team owns are some of the career products, which means we really develop, manage, implement, and of course report out on those particular things. So one of the big ones, which is remuneration data solutions, right? So if anybody in this room feels that they're paid actually well or otherwise, it's me who's responsible, because I am the one who actually bring out the whole compensation benchmarking report for 127 countries of the world based out of Warsaw in India, right? So that's what my team owns. That's one. So we've actually moved away from just, so same thing with employee engagement surveys. So any surveys that happen, the report out actually happens from my team, and I own that particular product. So we've actually seen moving from just being a service provider to really owning products and really being responsible for top line and not just managing cost of that. So I think that's something that we've seen that evolution too. And most importantly, I think any respective, and I've been in quite a few panels where we've actually seen being from a cost provider to a value creator. Make no mistake, cost still continues to be the big, what you call, expectation that if they really send work to India, we will be doing work which is a lot more cost effective. So we cannot really move away from the cost arbitrage that we are able to provide, right? So I think that's something that I just want to make sure. And last but not the least, I think our strategy is, of course, how do we try and become an innovation hub, talent hub and innovation hub for Mercer, which means we have access to 85 plus countries ways of working. How do we try and integrate one, standardize them, and most importantly, is there something that we can really look at from an AI perspective on that? And the ability that we have is access to multiple processes, and most importantly, ability to fail fast and more cost effectively. But God forbid, if we are successful, the ability to scale up is significantly higher than if those AI implementation happens in their own respective organization. That's what I bring to the table, or Mercer brings to the table.
I think that's brilliant, because what you're saying is from the peripheries, we are now coming right to the center of an organization. We are also being innovation centric. But the cost part of it, if you look at the finance FP&A resource, right? Financial planning and accounting resource, or the financial operations resource, the average salary in the US is $76,000. The average salary in India is $16,000. And that will remain for the next 25 years. So to an extent, a resource cost still continues and will largely be a driver of the cost arbitrage. Also, we've done a simulation of what that cost arbitrage refers to when it comes to the market capitalization of the parent companies. It's $3 trillion US dollars, which means $3 trillion US dollars incremental market capitalization is what GCC's parent organizations achieve because of the impact of the cost arbitrage. Rajesh, I want to quickly go over to you. You are anyways at the center of innovation, so how are GCC strategies changing in your organization, and what are you seeing in the marketplace?
Hi, good morning. Rajesh Mani, and I work with MasterCard. I head the technology hubs for Asia Pacific. In addition, I also lead the workplace experience vertical for AP. Been with MasterCard for about 11 odd years now. Started off on the business side, did stints across the region, across various countries, which is when the GCC magic called me, and I said, let me move back to India, and been here now for about 3 years. Started my career, interestingly, with as an entrepreneur. Was in the so-called captive stroke, and I heard Ajit talk about captive in those days, and I'm talking about the mid-90s. Did that for about 10 years, very lucrative at that time, had a successful exit, then went to the ISB to do my master's, and then did stints with ITC, American Express, and with what we then used to call Airtel Money, was actually the founding member of that business, which is now the Airtel Payments Bank. Now, back to the question you had. Now, if you look at the GCC model, and I heard people talk about this, right? Ajit spoke about this, Aditi, and then Chirag as well. So typically, let me talk about the whole GCC model. If you look at the maturity curve, there are 3 distinct phases. And I'm not going to get into the timeline, so depending on which consultant or consultancy firm you speak to, the timelines vary. But I think everybody agrees it started off with cost arbitrage, like you said. But then I think in India, it kind of leapfrogged into what I'd like to call, well, skills arbitrage, for want of a better word. The kind of people you would get in India at scale wasn't available in other countries. I mean, the engineering talent pool that we have, and make no mistakes, cost arbitrage goes away nowhere. I mean, and I'm not going to belabor that point. And I think the future is about technology arbitrage. I mean, with the advent of things like generative AI, and India being at the cutting edge of a lot of technology work, I think that's going to be our USP going forward. So it's going to be technology arbitrage, and depending on which GCC you talk to, and depending on where they are on the maturity curve, if I may call it that, you either be in phase 1, 2, or 3. From a MasterCard standpoint, I'd say we are currently between 2 and 3, veering more towards 3. And let me try to illustrate that now. Now, if you look at our GCC business, and sorry, but I'm not a big fan of the word GCC, guys. And you know, when people say captive, it kind of gets to me. I just think we are a center, because when people talk about things like offshore, so I asked them, what is onshore for you? If you have 100 offices, how can you say that is offshore? Then what is onshore? Right? Because I think today that word itself has become passé. So I really think, and I really request all of you to stop using the word called GCC. So we started off in Pune in 2014 with about 200 odd folks. And today, in 10 years' time, we are the biggest tech hub for MasterCard globally. And this is not just in terms of numbers, right? We are talking of capability. And for those of you who come from an engineering stroke tech background, you would have heard of this concept called program model. So MasterCard follows a program model where, you know, the core program and the adjacencies are co-located. So we have more than 90 plus programs working out of the Pune Tech Hub. So it's not as if we are on the peripheries anymore. We are mainstream. And of course, we have leadership positions here as well. In addition to that, what we also do is we do a lot of work with the ecosystem, a lot of work with the government, a lot of work with industry bodies like NASSCOM, CII. And that's something we are looking at leveraging further. And I'll probably illustrate that you know, if we have time in the next question, next round. But from a future standpoint, and this is again very internal, right? So I'd like to break this down into an internal focus MasterCard has from a future standpoint and an external focus. Internal focus, very clearly, we want to build our talent pipeline. We have significant leadership presence here in Pune, but are we as big as the parent organization? The answer is obviously no. So we would definitely like to start building leadership positions, or rather expanding our leadership profile out of Pune. Second one is, how do we integrate our collaboration with all the other technology hubs we have globally? So we have become the leader now, we've taken pole. How do we then become the enabling force that works across the globe so that we can co-create and drive innovation for the future and for global customers? So that's going to be my internal focus. External focus, very clear, and I'd like to break this down into 3 components. One, work with the government and industry bodies. We want to continue our work with folks like Certain. We do a lot of work with them. How do we expand on that? How do we work with the government of India to forward their agenda of a digital Bharat? How do we continue doing that? How do we bring programs, and you know, we have something called a community pass, which essentially is around digitizing the agri-value chain. And this is not just payments, right? We provide a platform where farmers can discover price, can discover buyers. So how do we take this outside? And you know, maybe next time around I'll talk to you about that. But in a nutshell, that's what we have in mind.
I think the key takeaway I take is from this is GCCs are having access to data, they're having access to what's happening across the globe, and therefore are able to, in a central location, think about innovation and think about innovation for the future. And that's becoming a competitive source of competitive advantage for the parent companies as they're looking at operating models. Vivek, you've been in the industry and your organization has been in industry for close to 2 decades now. So how have you seen GCC strategies evolve, and where are they headed in the next 5 years?
Sure, thank you. Just as a quick introduction, I am Vivek, Country Head Managing Director, but that's my local title. My actual role is Vice President Network Engineering. So Colt is a telecom organization, European telecom organization who's grown global. We are biggest pan-European infrastructure B2B organization today from a telecom perspective. And if you look at the journey of Colt quickly, in last 2 decades, obviously we started off from a cost arbitrage perspective, but we very soon started transitioning some of the processes like engineering. So today, we have, as I'm saying, sitting here, I'm managing the global network engineering for Colt, which means predominantly the whole function is based in India. Similarly, our entire NOC is based in India. Similarly, our entire SOC is based in India, Security Operating Center. A lot of delivery functions, a lot of IT development, system development. So core engineering activities, core system development activities, core customer delivery activities, security operating centers, all of them have transitioned to India. I personally feel this is more than the skill and cost. This is a combination of skill, cost, and passion. I think what people in India, I've been working with global organization and global setup for almost 2 decades, myself, more than 2 decades myself. But the unique thing that I see in India is passion. The employees bring such a huge passion on the table and the hunger to grow, and along with themselves, they want the organization to grow. That has changed the whole thing. You see the global roles coming up. Our head of talent is based in India. The multiple functions and leaders who have global roles here managing global setup. So that's all that has transitioned. In the process, you touched upon the innovation. These leaders, the global roles that they are managing, are driving innovations. So as I'm saying today, you talked about Rajesh being somewhere between 2 and 3. I think Colt, I can say that I think we've crossed 3, because we are in the process where these global leaders sitting in India and the global functions or the functionally integrated teams are driving transformation for the organization. There are multiple examples, whether they are new technology, network technology testing, deployment, product development, or system transformations like inventory systems, CRM systems. Large executions and plannings are happening out of India. And these people are depending upon their peer group, their connects in the industry, their growth, their hunger to learn new things, deploy new things, work hard, spend a lot of time. They are driving innovation. And if you look at 5G, let's say a decade back, I could not find a lot of resources on 5G in many geographies, but India had. There were a couple of development companies who were doing that. Similarly, today, I see a lot of AI-based development happening here. The infrastructure is sitting in US, but the developers, the planners, the coders, they are predominantly sitting in India. So with tech advantage, with cost arbitrage advantage, and with passion to learn, grow, and take the organization ahead, I think this journey is just looking amazing. Just like Rajesh, I do acknowledge that a lot of senior leaders who had settled or had moved to other parts of the world are coming back, and they are bringing these global talent, global leadership basically. So that whole thing is driving innovation. We are technologically well advanced, way advanced than many other geographies. And that's why we see the whole ecosystem is unique. I think NASSCOM has recently published that from an ecosystem maturity perspective, India is much ahead of any other country. So it's on the top. So I think the last thing I would add is that from a ecosystem perspective, what we feel we can do is share our best practices. These platforms are vital. I am sharing my story, Aditi is everybody, the whole panel is sharing their story. I think we should have more platforms to learn from each other. I look at the AI use cases being deployed in some of the GCCs in India today. If one can do it, many others can do it. How can we create that platform to learn from each other, grow with each other, share with each other? I think that is a unique opportunity that we have. So
I think this is a perfect segue to go to Saurabh. Saurabh, you're running operations for global corporations. You're running IT services for global corporations. You're running, product development, engineering services for global corporations, and you're at the forefront of AI and how it is going to disrupt all of this, right? So, what are your thoughts, external, outside in, and inside out, that you'd like to share with?
Yeah, so before I start, I just wanted to let Rajesh, Vivek know that in case you're not getting 5G engineers, talk to us, right? So as a service provider, that's what we bring to the table. But good morning to all of you. My name is Saurabh Singh, and I lead the India business for HCL Technologies. HCL Technologies, as all of you in the room may be aware, we are the third largest India heritage IT services provider. With over 2.5 decades of services experience behind me, I'm very happy and privileged to be here. I've worked closely with GCCs for the last 12 odd years. And from my career perspective, worked with large tier 1 organizations and a PE invested startup. Because I have worked in various countries, I also have an understanding of the cultural nuances and how they play out, especially in the global capability centers. Now, all my esteemed panelists have given an inside-out view because that's how you guys are seeing your GCCs evolve and the strategies you're putting in place to deliver outcomes rather than just a cost arbitrage play. I just want to call out maybe 3 or 4 things in terms of how, as a service provider, an outside-in view of what we believe will be the GCC of the future. Right? And it is, some of you did touch upon that point, but the first thing which we are seeing, Ajit mentioned it in his opening speech, that COVID taught us resilience. And the way we embraced remote working, life has never been the same. So in our opinion, as a service provider, we believe that the hybrid GCCs are here to stay. It will no longer be work from home, but it will be work from hometown. That's how we are seeing it. GCCs are now getting into tier 2, tier 3 cities, primarily because, due to the extreme urbanization, the Bangalore and the Silicon Valleys are getting completely crowded, and hence Coimbatore and Madurai are offering viable options both in terms of talent availability and the fact that a 1 lakh salary has a 60% saving potential in a smaller city compared that to an urban. So in our opinion, while it does, the work from home does throw challenges around data privacy, data security, and that's where a service provider like ourselves will come in with a robust cybersec governance framework and help you guys walk the talk. So that's the first thing which I'm seeing in the as a future GCC. The second thing I believe is that the engineering hub of the world will be India. And I think the engineering prowess from a talent perspective which the country offers, the demographic dividend, which I guess all of us are aware, very clearly via tie-ups with startups as well as academic institutions, we are making sure that not a single vertical is untouched with respect to engineering services. So whether it is aerospace, defense, semiconductors, for example, now path-breaking work is happening in this vertical, and as a service provider, we are at the forefront of driving some of that innovation. The third thing I would want to call out is sustainability. And I think it's no longer a compliance-driven initiative. It's a comparative advantage-driven theme. I'm seeing a lot of GCCs making sure that their product design, their packaging design is all sustainable, and it makes sure that they're making sure that their reputation as a brand is taken care of by making such bold moves around sustainability. So again, HCL Technologies has enabled a lot of GCCs on this journey, both on the engineering side as well as on putting platforms and KPIs and reporting dashboards. We have a platform approach to these things. So we see that this will continue to be a key theme for all the GCCs as you move 5 to 6 years down the line. And finally, the emerging technologies, whether it is AI, whether it is blockchain, whether it is smart manufacturing, I think with the talent availability, with the demographic dividend the country offers, if we are not playing in this space, I think nobody is untouched by it. I mean, I called up a GCC leader, and trust me, the phone was picked up by a digital assistant. For me, it was a revelation. Then he decided whether he wants to see me or not. That's a different question. But, things which we were seeing in sci-fi movies are now getting real. And it is thanks to the GCCs who are doing this path-breaking, innovative work, which is really taking us into the future. I would want to summarize the future of the GCC by saying that from an idea and innovation perspective, you guys have moved to implementing it. And finally, in 2 to 3 years, you are going to institutionalize it, not only for your own GCC setup, but also for the parent mothership. That's really
and showing the
my
way
take,
to
yeah.
the other GCCs
Yes.
too. So how many of you have heard of Devin? If somebody could put your hand up, if you've heard of Devin. Devin is an artificial intelligence software engineer. None of you have put your hand up. At the end of this session, I'm sure all of you are going to have a look at Devin, because Devin can plan and autonomously execute everything that a software engineer can do, including going into Reddit hub, chat conversations and figuring out what it needs to do, downgrading versions so that something can work and so on, just by one prompt. Agentic AI, and I'll ask this provocative question, right? And maybe I'll ask with Vivek, I'll start with you. Will AI and all of the technologies that come in, will it completely make operations irrelevant, and will it completely be the demise of GCCs?
Well, I think my view on this is that it will change the shape for sure. How we operate, how we serve our customers will definitely change, but there will never be a situation that there are no operations. I think the people who will be consuming and using AI will also be developing AI, and that's where the combination will be very unique, very different, at a very different level. But operations, I think, will still exist.
Operations will still exist. And Rajesh, you're in payments business, right? And MasterCard is really powering payments for the world. But then India showed the way with UPI in terms of the possibilities, and it's giving a good run to all payment providers across the world, right? So, but what I want to pick on is, how does local innovation, how does a Indian mindset of how it looks at innovation play a role in the global scheme of things?
Great question, and I was kind of expecting that one. I want to be mindful of time, so I'll probably rush through this one. I'll talk about this answer in 3 blocks. One is the kind of work we are doing with 3 important stakeholders and how we are taking this to outside of India. One is with the government. So we've got something called a MasterCard Strive program, a partnership where we have committed to bringing in 500,000, that's 500,000 micro enterprises into the digital economy, with clear focus on agri entrepreneurs, women-led businesses, and micro enterprises. And once we have this model in India, we will obviously export this into other markets as well. The second one is the work we do with Certain. I referred to that in my previous answer as well. So we are working with Certain. We have an MOU with them on how do we enhance cybersecurity for the financial industry. So for me, these 2 are very key on how MasterCard engages with the government and becomes a blueprint for how we do this in other markets. So that's the first one. The second one is about the community that we engage with. I spoke about the farmer community. So we have a product called Farm Pass, / Community Pass, that's completely homegrown, made in India, made in Pune, in fact, which is about empowering the farmers by digitizing the value chain. We have more than 5 million farmers who've been touched by this, and now we are looking at taking this product to other parts of the world which have a predominantly agrarian economy. And the third one is about fintechs, startups. We do a lot of work with fintechs in India. In fact, we have a proprietary program called StartPath, by which we engage fintechs and we help take them, not just invest in them, but we also help them go to other markets. So for instance, some notable investments that we've made is Razorpay in India, Zeta, ToneTech. These are all MasterCard invested, and they've come through the StartPath, an incubator of sorts. We then help these homegrown bodies become a global player.
I think that's brilliant, because as India with its 1.4 billion people itself is a big market for many of the parent companies, and What we're also seeing governments do in states is integrate the manufacturing policy with the GCC policy and the IT policy and all of that together. Because if you want to get manufacturing incentives, it's a little bit about how much investment you brought in, how many people you brought in, how much sales you're doing, and all of that fits into an overall package. And I think many states are kind of thinking through it, and you're kind of enabling that from an ecosystem standpoint. Chirag, I think, from personal experience, I can tell you that Marsh McLennan stands for its people. So how are you building a inclusive and inclusive environment for your people to kind of do their best?
So in terms of Mercer, we've got couple of things that we really live by. One is what we call is empathy with economics, which means that we've had actually 18 quarter-on-quarter year-on growth, including during the COVID period, right? So we've continued to grow our businesses, but with empathy, right? Where people are HR consulting transformation, people are the center of things we do. So we actually live by that. That's one. The second thing that we really do well is purposeful engagement, right? So we, in terms of when you talk about employee engagement and all that stuff, it needs to be with purpose. So we have a very clear 4 or 5 areas that we work on, which really make sure that we engage people and bring them along that particular. So we have a very clear program of diversity and inclusion. So so while we have focus on diversity and inclusion, we also have a target to make sure that it's not just at diversity at lower level, but also at managerial level, right? So we work on that. We have an accessibilities program that we really work on. We have what we call as colleague resource groups or business resource groups, right? Which looks at things like social impact. In fact, our social impact leader is right here with us. So we've adopted a couple of villages, few schools, and we really bring them up right at the grassroots level, and not through checkbook philanthropy, right? So we know we have to contribute 2% as CSR funds. But more than that, it's through employee volunteering, right? In terms of how we really get people into that particular. So last year, this year itself, I'm already into 2025, but in 2024 itself, we had more than 11,000 hours of people volunteering on Mercer time, right? And that's what we really try to do on that. So that's the other thing. Plus, making sure that the mid-management, we really try and build them up through programs like Women Leadership Development Program, First Line Managers. So try and make sure that we really empower them to really make sure that they are successful on that. So we live by those culture values.
First, you make your people happy, you make your customers happy, and our customers could be our, parent companies that in turn make their customers happy. But
right.
Aditi, very quickly, because we're very short on time, how do you bring in agility?
So for us at AXA XL, because we are into large commercial PNC, which by definition means very customized, bespoke programs. So we have never looked at scale and efficiency and standardization the way you would look at a mass product, at a retail product. So we have to think differently. And I think for us, agility comes by our innate capability of being able to leverage the co-location of various functions, various market operations, because we are always very conscious that what our Northern American market needs is very different, say, from what our Asia Pac market needs is very different from what our European market needs. And there is the only place that we can kind of leverage that co-location and also tie it up with our risk and technology and actuarial functions is here. And that's where we kind of bring in, I would say, almost a community which is way beyond the reporting structures to kind of build the accelerated changes that we can start influencing upon. And that's how we have always thought of agility, which means that we always have a way to get things done faster beyond the reporting structures. And I think that's what our USP has been in a very, very complex business, which is not really given into a lot of, carving out processes. So how do you build that end-to-end, literally a absolutely different operational mindset to get to it?
A different mindset. Saurabh, maybe one last
I
parting
can already
comment.
see the red screen, right?
Yes, we are.
The
We've
blue death-
completely run out of time,
the
gentlemen.
blue
so-
screen of death versus
Okay,
the
10
red.
seconds is all that
So
I can
very
give you.
quickly, I think there has been a big conundrum around GCCs are doing a lot of work in India. So are the service providers, going to get a reduced share of business, right? The only two or three things I want to call out in this aspect because I think it's relevant and it's important for both the GCCs and the service provider that the market is large enough for both the ecosystems to collaborate. Point number one. Point number two, the service provider has been a successful navigator with the driver, the GCC, and for any journey to be successful, you need both the driver and the navigator to be adept at doing what they're doing. So, from cradle to grave, when the idea of the GCC is not even born, the service provider is working with the parent organization to really figure out which country to open the GCC in. Now that the country has decided which location to go and open the GCC, whether it's Bangalore or Madurai, and if for whatever reasons, besides supplying talent, if the GCC is not able to deliver on the outcome with which it was envisaged, service providers have rallied around to monetize that asset and also do carve-outs. So we have been a partner to the GCC ecosystem all through the various maturity stages, as Rajesh mentioned. There is a lot of IPs which both the service providers have created and the GCCs have created, and I don't think we have collaborated enough to monetize those assets, right? We taking it to another payment bank from MasterCard and monetizing it for you, and you taking our 5G, artifact and IP which we have created and take it to a Colt or to a Verizon and others. So I think the space for collaboration and the need for collaboration is fairly clear. It's a matter of shaking hands and going from idea to institutionalization. That's how
I think
see
with that, as they say, picture abhi baki hai. So I'd like to thank each of you panelists and to the audience for a patient hearing. I think time's up, but thank you very much, and please join your hands and a round of applause for the.
Thank you so much.